rusted bell attached to a rope. Back to the bar, I said, jerking my thumb behind me. Her head tilted, but her eyes stayed locked on me. No, you're not, she whispered. Then one night, while watching TV, I heard what sounded like someone slowly walking down the stairs. Standing just 10 feet away on the edge of the lot was the same woman. There were more now, 3, 4, maybe 5, emerging from all the houses, all barefoot, all blank-eyed. Hey, hello, welcome to ASMRk. I hope you're alright. Today's video is another compilation of scary Reddit stories. There is 6 in total today. Let's get straight to the first one. I hope you enjoy. I started taking late night walks when I first moved into my new place. It was a way to unwind after work, clear my head, and honestly, it just felt like I wasn't wasting every evening in front of a screen. Brighton Park was only a few blocks away, big, well lit on most sides, surrounded by restaurants and apartment blocks. Nothing about it screamed unsafe. A lot of people used it even after dark. I got into a routine: leave the apartment around 9:15, walk a loop through the park, and back before 10. It was uneventful for the first couple of weeks. Joggers passing by, a few dog walkers, sometimes couples sitting on benches under the streetlights. Then, one night in late October, something shifted. It had rained earlier that evening, so the grass was damp and the air felt colder than usual. The park was emptier than normal, and I figured most people had stayed in because of the weather. I didn't mind the quiet. I cut through the north side of the park, where an old stone fountain sits. It hadn't worked in years. Most people avoided that stretch since it wasn't well lit and had a run-down vibe. I liked it though, it felt more peaceful. That's when I saw him. A man just standing by the fountain, not leaning, not walking, just standing completely motionless. His clothes didn't make sense either. No jacket, just a thin, white button down, sleeves rolled up, pants soaked halfway up the legs. His hair was damp too, like he'd been standing in water, or worse, like he'd just climbed out of it. He didn't move, didn't acknowledge me, just stood there, facing the fountain. I tried not to look twice. I told myself people were weird. Maybe he was high or drunk. Maybe just weirdly attached to the fountain. I kept my pace steady, eyes forward. But a few steps later, I heard footsteps, fast ones. Not jogging, not strolling, urgent, heavy footsteps, closing the gap between us. I turned my head just slightly, enough to see him moving. Not walking normally. His legs were moving too fast, arms hanging by his sides, posture stiff like his body didn't quite understand how to function. I cut across the path to the grass, putting distance between us, heading for a different exit. I could feel him behind me. The sound of those rushed footsteps kept me moving faster, heart slamming in my chest. The whole way out of the park, I didn't dare look back. I made it home without seeing him again. My building was just a 10-minute walk from the park, and by the time I got through my front door, I'd mostly convinced myself it was harmless. Some weird guy wandering around after a bad day, or a bad trip. I skipped the walk the next couple of nights, but by the end of the week, I shook it off. The park wasn't unsafe. I wasn't going to let one strange encounter ruin something I enjoyed. So I went back. Same route, same time, but this time guided the fountain path. Except I still saw him, standing by the distant tree line near the basketball courts. Same posture, stiff, shoulders tense, like he didn't belong in his own skin. His head slowly turned in my direction, even from across the field. He didn't wave or speak, just watched. I booked it out of there, took the long route home down a busy road. But the next night, I felt stubborn, like maybe I'd imagined it. People see things in the dark, right? I decided I'd walk the other side of the park, the better lit area with benches and playgrounds. Halfway through my loop, I passed a row of small exercise stations. Everything seemed normal until I walked past a water fountain. A voice, calm but too close, said, "You shouldn't be here." I turned sharply. No one. The hairs on my arms stood up instantly. My heart dropped in a way I can't explain, like my instincts suddenly screamed at me that I was being hunted. There was no one in sight though, no footsteps approaching, just the sound of cars from a distant road. I left the park immediately. That was 3 months ago, and I haven't been back since. I didn't report it, didn't tell friends, not really sure what I'd even say. I did look up incidents in Brighton Park though. Turns out, 2 years back, a man matching the same appearance, white shirt, thin build, messy dark hair, was reported missing after last being seen walking home through that park at night. His body was never found. Now I get this weird, unsettling feeling every time I walk past the park's outer fence. Even with the street lights, all the traffic, the normalcy of the city around me, there's always this flicker of a presence. Like if I looked hard enough, I'd see him standing there, head turned slightly, blank expression, waiting. I don't think I'll ever step foot in that park again. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else. I'd been away for years, but I'd returned after my mum had passed, just to handle the estate. The town hadn't changed. Same cracked roads, same boarded up storefronts, same quiet that felt more suffocating than peaceful. Her house sat at the far end of Bell Road, tucked into a curve with nothing but woods behind it. Locals used to call it the Bellringers House, though I never knew why. My mum never talked about it, and I never thought to ask. The first couple of nights back were fine. I stayed busy sorting papers and sorting through dusty photo albums. Then, around the third night, I noticed the sound, an odd metallic ringing from somewhere in the woods. It wasn't constant, just a single clang here, a distant ting there, always past midnight, always from behind the house. I didn't like it. I tried to ignore it at first, thinking maybe it was pipes or wind chimes in the distance. But by the 5th night, the sound was unmistakable, clear, sharp, and moving closer each time it rang out. I asked the neighbour, an older man named Frank, if anyone had bells or wind chimes nearby. He just gave me a look, like I was asking something I shouldn't. "It's the woods," he said, then added, "You don't follow sounds out here." That night, the bell rang again, but it wasn't coming from deep in the woods anymore. It sounded like it was maybe 20 feet from the back porch. Against my better judgment, I went outside with a flashlight. The night was dead quiet except for the occasional snap of a branch. I swept the light through the woods, and that's when I saw her. A woman standing in the clearing, back turned to me, her head loosely clutching a long, rusted bell attached to a rope. She didn't move, didn't react. Her clothes looked wrong, like they belonged to another century. Long skirt, apron, hair pinned up messily. I spoke out, something simple like, "Do you need help?" She didn't respond, but the bell clanged again, without her moving her arm. When I stepped forward, the flashlight flickered and died. I sprinted back to the house, or I tried to. The trees felt denser, the path harder to follow. I could hear the bells swinging wildly now, ringing and echoing all around me, like there were a dozen of them. When I got back to the house, I slammed the door shut, but it wouldn't lock. It was like something was pushing it from the outside. I had to brace my shoulder against it while the bell tolled louder and louder. Then, silence. When I looked through the peephole, there was nothing. No woman, no sound, just the empty porch. The next morning, I drove into town and asked Frank again about the Bellringers House. He said one thing. That house used to be a church. They buried the bell after the fires. Guess it didn't stay buried. And I left that night. I was working late shifts at a bar downtown last winter, and by the time I closed up, the streets were usually empty, except for a few cab drivers and late-night delivery trucks. Most nights I took the main road home, well lit and lined with little stores and cafes. But one Thursday, I cut through Elridge Street, one of those narrow lanes wedged between old buildings, where the streetlights barely worked. It was a cold, quiet walk at first. The only sound was the occasional distant car. But halfway down, I noticed a figure leaning against the wall under one of the busted streetlights. A woman standing very still, like she was waiting. I kept walking, trying not to make eye contact, but the closer I got, the more I realised something was off. She was facing the brick wall, head down, arms hanging loose by her sides. Her coat looked way too thin for the weather, just some faded, shapeless fabric. As I passed, she turned, but not a normal turn. Her whole body moved slowly, while her head stayed angled down. I could see enough of her face, gone, pale, with sunken eyes that didn't seem to focus. "Which way you going?" she asked, voice quiet and hoarse. I lied. "Back to the bar," I said, jerking my thumb behind me. Her head tilted, but her eyes stayed locked on me. "No, you know," she whispered. I started walking faster, ignoring the sudden chill that crawled up my spine. When I glanced back, she was still standing there, but her face had shifted. This wide, crooked grin stretched across her cheeks, eyes too wide, like she was barely human. I turned the corner, trying to get to the next block, but when I came out of the other side, there she was, standing under another street light, same posture, same crooked grin. There was no way she could have got there before me. No cars, no people, just me and her on the street. I ducked into a 24-hour corner store. The guy behind the counter barely looked up, but when he did, said, "You don't walk past her. You don't speak to her." I told him I already had. He just shook his head. "Walk the main road home. Don't look back, and don't go near Elridge again." I followed his advice. I never took that shortcut ever again. But every so often, late at night, when I pass a broken street light, I get the feeling someone's standing just out of view, waiting for me to make the wrong turn. Sorry to interrupt the stories. They will continue shortly. This is just a quick message. If you are enjoying the stories, please do consider subscribing for more. There'll be 2 new videos every week containing scary stories, all whispered. Anyway, let's get back to these stories. I moved back into my childhood home last year. It's a plain 2-story in a quiet neighbourhood. Nothing old or gothic, just standard drywall and carpeted floor. Everything seemed completely normal at first, but small things started happening in that first month. Lights would be on when I was certain I'd have turned them off. The door to the hallway closet, which was always open, would be closed when I came downstairs in the morning. I blamed muscle memory, old habits, maybe just adjusting to living alone again. The house didn't feel spooky. It just felt a little off. It wasn't until a few weeks later that the noises started, always at night, faint like the gentle click of a door handle or the shuffle of bare feet moving from the hallway into the living room. The first few times I told myself it was just the house settling. That's what everyone says, right? Then one night, while watching TV, I heard what sounded like someone slowly walking down the stairs. Steady, one step at a time. My stomach knotted up, but when I checked, the staircase was empty. The house silent. I stood there, staring up at the darkness, every hair on my arms standing up for no good reason. The real turning point was the door upstairs at the end of the hallway. It was always slightly open when I was growing up. My parents kept linens in there. Since moving back, I kept it closed because it felt neater that way. But night after night, I'd come upstairs and find it open, just a few inches. Not wide, it was just enough to notice. I started locking it with an old hatch. Even then, I'd hear the faintest click at night, and in the morning, it would be cracked open again, the latch undone. I tried to ignore it until I got woken up one night at around 3 a.m. It was the unmistakable sound of the latch clicking open. From my bed, I could see the hallway through the half-open door. That linen door was swinging inward, slow and steady, like someone was easing it open from the inside. I obviously didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I moved a chair in front of the linen closet, but by morning it had been pushed aside, just enough to let the door open a crack. I even screwed the latch into the frame, same result. The door was always open by the morning. I haven't had any violent activity, nothing thrown or broken, but something about that door, something quiet but deliberate, makes it worse. Like it's just watching and waiting. Last week, I booked a storage unit. I'm packing up and moving. I don't need answers, I just need distance. Some places don't want you there, even if it's supposed to be your home. I've always been a creature of habit. Every Thursday after work, I stop by the same grocery grocery store, grab the same few things, and take the same route home. Last month, though, I got delayed by a meeting and left the office later than usual. The traffic was worse, the grocery store was packed, and by the time I got to my neighbourhood, it was already dark. My usual left turn was blocked by roadworks, forcing me to take a detour through an area I'd never driven before. It wasn't run down or sketchy, just empty. Like a part of town that was still under development, wide roads, but not many streetlights, and a lot of vacant lots. I figured I'd cut through quickly and be home in 5 minutes. That's when I saw her. She stood in the driveway of a half-built house, just standing there, facing the road, not moving, not looking around, wearing jeans and a light-coloured jacket. Her hair was dark and pulled back. At first, I thought maybe her car had broken down, or she was waiting for someone. But as I drove by, I glanced in the rearview mirror, and she was just standing there. 2 streets later, I turned again. Another stretch of empty homes, some completed, others boarded up windows. That's when I saw her again. Same clothes, same posture, standing on the sidewalk about a block ahead. There was no way she could have gotten there ahead of me, not without a car, and I hadn't seen any vehicles around. I picked up speed and made a sharp right, thinking maybe I'd taken a wrong turn and looped back somewhere. The GPS was acting up, stuck buffering, and I didn't have a clear signal. I focused on heading north, back towards the busiest streets. I passed a narrow side road, and there she was again. This time, closer to the edge of the curb, angled slightly toward my car. My stomach tightened. It wasn't the look of someone waiting for a ride. It was like waiting for me. The road narrowed ahead. I glanced at my phone. Still no signal. I took another left, hoping to reconnect with the main road. The houses thinned out completely after the next turn, opening into empty lots and stretches of overgrown grass. I slowed down to check the GPS again, and something made me look to the side. Standing just 10 feet away on the edge of the lot was the same woman, same jacket, with the same jeans. This time, her head was tilted slightly, her eyes fixed on me. There was no fear, no confusion, just quiet attention, like she'd been expecting me to turn down that road. I didn't wait to figure out how or why she kept showing up. I pressed the gas, swerving back onto a wider street, ignoring every side road until I saw traffic and storefronts up ahead. When I got home, the GPS showed I'd been circling the same 4 blocks for over 20 minutes, even though I swore I was driving straight. I've taken the long way around ever since. I work delivery overnight. It's not glamorous, but it pays well enough, and I've gotten used to the quiet that comes with the small hours of the morning. The area I usually cover is near the main highway, fairly straightforward routes. But one Tuesday night, my dispatcher rerouted me to a new development called Willow Crossing. It was a new build community on the edge of the woods. It was almost 3 a.m. when I pulled in. Right away, I noticed something fell off. The streets were lined with identical 2-story homes, but they were all dark. Not like a few lights here and there. Every single house was pitch black. No porch lights, no glowing windows, nothing. The GPS said to take a left on a street called Harvest Loop, package to 1192. I shrugged it off and kept going. Just a late night deliverer, nothing more. The houses looked lived in, lawns mowed, mailboxes up, some had bikes or kids' toys in the driveway. But there was no sound, no dogs barking, no cars parked on the road, just a dead silence pressing in around the idling engine of my van. As I turned down Harvey's Loop, I got my first jolt of unease. There were no house numbers. Every mailbox just said Willow Crossing. No exceptions. The porch of 1192 should have been right at the corner, but I had no way to tell which one it was. I slowed down, windows cracked just a little. I thought maybe I'd see a light on or someone waiting for their delivery, but I didn't. Instead, I saw a man standing perfectly still in the front yard of one of the homes, about 4 houses down. He wasn't dressed for 3 AM weather, just jeans, no shirt, pale skin catching what little moonlight there was. He wasn't walking a dog or doing anything normal. He was just staring directly at my van. I decided not to get out. Screw it. No tip is worth stepping out into whatever this was. I marked the deliverer as no access, intending to turn around. But when I checked the rear camera to back out, there were 2 more figures standing at the end of the street. They hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. 2 women, again barefoot, just standing side by side in the middle of the road, staring at my van. My chest tightened. I shifted into drive and rolled forward. The man in the yard didn't move, but as I crept past, I swear I saw his head track my van, eyes locked on mine through the window. At the stop sign, I glanced in the side mirror. There were more now, 3, 4, maybe 5, emerging from all the houses, all barefoot, all blank-eyed, coming from both sides of the road. Their arms hung limp. One of the women inched closer to the curb, like she meant to step in front of my van. I slammed the gas. I made it back to the main road in minutes, heart racing, fingers ice cold on the steering wheel. My manager texted me, asking why I left Willow Crossing without finishing the delivery. I pulled over and called him immediately. That's when he told me something that made my stomach lurch. He said, "Dude, there's no Willow Crossing. That's not a scheduled route. I didn't reroute you. You should be on the Eastview loop." I checked the delivery app again, and the address for 1192 Harvest Loop was gone. The GPS had reset itself, showing my original route like I'd never left it. Against my better judgment, I went back during the day a week later. No Willow Crossing, no Harvest Loop, just dense forest where the turn-off had been. I've tried to forget it, tell myself it was a glitch, a GPS malfunction. But sometimes, when I drive late at night, especially near wooded areas, my route screen will flicker, just for a split second, and I'll see it again. Willow Crossing, 1192, Harvest Loop. I don't think I'd survive a second visit.